Hello, everyone, and welcome back to one of these interview episodes of the SWW show. I'm Mike, and today I have with me a special guest from decently around the world. To get us started, do you mind introducing yourself and the game we're here to talk about?
Yeah, sure. My name is Brecht Lecleuze. I'm co-founder and one of the developers at Glowfish Interactive. We're based in Belgium, and we're currently working on Trifox, which will actually be coming out really soon.
I'm pretty sure this, soon, maybe the day this comes out.
Next week.
Yeah, next week. It
Yes.
might be the day this comes out, so, look at it immediately for Steam, because it'll be out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So
And it should also be on Epic and GOG as well. So if you like those platforms.
Basically, any PC platform that's out there, it will.
Indeed.
Any of the big ones, I think is a better way of saying it. It will be there.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious if you don't mind talking about it. So you guys are Glowfish Interactive. I can't say I'm familiar with the work. It looked like this was like your first kind of game. Do you mind talking about kind of what is Glowfish Interactive? Where'd you guys come from?
Yeah, so basically, we're a very small team. We're only 3 people, and for the longest time, we were only 2 people. And basically, we got to know each other at uni, where we did a game development course here in Belgium at the Hogeschool West-Vlaanderen. And we kind of got to know each other and over there, and then decided, well, after we finished our studies, to kind of give it a go and try making a studio and making games ourselves. I personally, before that, I've been making games for the past, I think, 17 years now. Just started out as, Half-Life modding, all that kind of stuff. And was lucky enough to kind of take a path to then eventually do it professionally. And the same for one of my colleagues as well. He also started with map creation for Killing Floor, and then kind of evolved over time, and now he joined us as well. So we have a long history of making games, but this is our first actual title as a studio of ourselves, that we actually own the IP and everything. Apart from that, we did some contract work for other studios, but this is the first title that we actually own ourselves and made ourselves from scratch.
So I'm gonna ask the dumb technical question here then, because so you have a publisher, which is we kind of talked about before. Do you still own the IP rights and everything? The publisher doesn't now?
Yes, we own the IP rights.
Wow, that's a pretty good publishing deal.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely
heard
plenty of stories of they're like, yeah, we kind of own it still, kind of, but not really.
Yeah, no. In this case, we still own the rights for Trifox and such. So that's really, really cool, and it's a really nice partnership and mutual understanding and a fair partnership as well. So yeah, we're quite happy with that.
Nice. But yeah, do you mind talking about what is Trifox? So you said this is your guys' first game, then as a team, what is kind of people who don't know, who haven't seen before, what is Trifox? Because I'm getting kind of that immediate gut reaction to me was like this kind of, it reminds me of the old kind of action platform use, but a lot more like a modern-y kind of twist. Was that kind of you're going for? Talk, if you don't mind talking.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going for. So when we started out, how we usually pitched the game was, what if a game like Crash Bandicoot was a twin-stick shooter? That was basically like our baseline that we started with. So it's like I mentioned, it's a twin-stick action adventure game inspired by classic platformers. That's kind of the full spiel, right? So we want to kind of capture that mood and that vibe from games like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Ratchet and Clank, those PlayStation 1 era games, early PlayStation 2 era games, and kind of then give it a twist in a different genre with unique gameplay and our own little spiel on it. So that's like in a quick nutshell what Trifox is.
That's pretty interesting. I feel like so we saw this obviously return and resurgence of this type of games the last couple of years, kind of in the indie space, and obviously some of the bigger ones, kind of some capacity came back. Well, yeah. I'm kind of curious as someone who's worked on them now. What to you why do you think these went away? And then I'm kind of curious, second, what do you think you're doing or the people in the space are doing to kind of make them come back in a way that could actually matter, or kind of took the problems of before and changed them?
Well, I mean, like with that kind of stuff, I think at some point there's saturation, right? And people are, so it's kind of like overload of these kind of games, and then something else comes along, and then everybody jumps on that other thing. And it's kind of like fashion, I guess, right? Things come and go, and they come back. And now we had this resurgence. I think it's fairly similar with games, actually. It's the same with like movies and stories and that kind of stuff, in a certain sense as well. So yeah, and we always loved that colorful style of games, and more like that joyful style. And when we were looking at like the genre, like the twin stick shooter stuff, and like those kind of games, we didn't really find anything that kind of had that aesthetic and that vibe. It was usually a lot of zombies and space aliens and all that kind of stuff that you in a more realistic settings. And then if you took the other side, it was more like Zelda-like games, RPGs and that kind of stuff. So there wasn't really an in-between. So we kind of went for, in terms of gameplay, so we kind of went for an in-between where we took that style from those classic platformers and then, slightly less shoot 'em up, more towards the Zelda, but not really as RPG puzzle that deep in that direction.
It's interesting. So I'm kind of curious, and with that being kind of in mind, right? So to me, when I think of these things, obviously, I think, as we said, platform's big one, kind of like that colorful nature. I think the other thing that, at least kind of at the tail end of these being a big genre, was a ton of collectibles or some sort of it, right? So I see you have a bunch of coins and those kind of things.
Yeah.
How did you kind of handle that part of the balance of like making it like still that kind of like that nature then, but like not the like Donkey Kong 64 level of here's 50 for collectibles. Like, how did you kind of walk that line?
Yeah, so we would have loved to have more of that stuff in there, right? But because we're a small team, we kind of had to make choices. So it's in there to some degree. It's more for the completionists, but we mainly focus on just the moment-to-moment gameplay. So in our game, you have these 3 different playstyles that you can choose from, and you can use your coins to unlock abilities for those different playstyles, right? And in total, we have about 30 of those different abilities. They're all completely unique, 10 for each playstyle, and you can freely mix and match them the way you like. So you can say, I really like, for example, the engineer playstyle, which is more focused on like placing cool little turrets and gadgets that do the dirty work for you. But I also like being like the school warrior with a big hammer that smashes everything, and then you can make combinations where you can, have like these like a grappling hook that you can pull enemies toward you and then kind of surround them with your turrets or your little walls that you deploy and kind of trap them in there and create these really interesting synergies between the different things. So our coins are mainly used to unlock those things. And then we also have like these gems that you can find, which are, for the completionists out there, if you find all of them, you get to 100% completion. Ideally, we would have loved to add more of that stuff in there, but like I mentioned, right, there's certain limitations and like time and budget. Like in an ideal world, we would do everything the way we want, but sometimes we need to make these choices.
I was gonna say, ideal world, the game would be 10 times longer, take 1/3 as long.
Yeah. I mean,
aware the ideal world is always that dream of like, my new scope was 10 times bigger.
Yeah, there's this one. There's this one thing that we really wanted to add. Oh, sorry, it was my phone. Let me disable that. There was this one thing that we really wanted to add with the unlockables that we just couldn't find the time in the end, or like that. Yeah, we just didn't get to it. We have the functionality roughly in there, but we couldn't, have the environment to put that stuff in there. And I'm not going to say exactly what it is because we might add it later, but if we're lucky enough. But yeah.
So yeah, there's always that. That is always that fun idea of like when you're trying to do that stuff, you're like talking about after you're like, I want to talk about it, but I don't know if we might come back to this thing. Like,
yeah. What was like something to do with the stuff that you collect, right? Like, because I always like it if yes, it's a collectathon and you need to get all that stuff. If you then can also do something with that or get like an extra reward for finding all of them, apart from, I completed 100% or I got an achievement, that you also get like an in-game reward for that. So that's the thing that we really wanted to add it into there. But yeah.
Nice. No, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing I really want to talk about is, as you kind of touched on it, but I don't know we dug into a bunch, is so, as you said, there are three classes kind of in the game, right? So there's engineer, there's warrior, and there's mage.
Yeah.
I think a game like this, I think classes are, I think, already a more unique kind of twist on it that I don't see a lot in these kind of platformers and action games. Do you mind talking about kind of, it could be any, like, just choose your favorite or whatever, or choose a random because it's your baby, so none of your favorite. Of like, kind of what, like, how do one of these classes function and kind of how does it affect gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a favorite. So my favorite is the engineer that uses the turrets and all of those gadgets. Um, so basically how he functions, it's kind of like tower defensey in a way, right? Because you can manipulate the enemies with like placing little wall structures and then placing turrets and kind of luring them into your traps. He also has so each playstyle also has a unique movement ability that you can unlock and equip. So in his case, he has this cool helicopter in his backpack. So if you use your movement ability, you can then kind of hover and jump over enemies and kind of block them over the walls and then jump over them, place a flamethrower turret. The flamethrower turret will take them out. You also have like these little robots that you can use to keep your structures alive, right? So you can really like hunker down, create a cool little, fortress around you. And the fun thing that we also do is we don't restrict placement of those things too much. So say that you find a wall, you can actually place the turrets on the wall as well, which means that small little melee enemies can't hit the turrets, so they're kind of safe of that. But then there's like a trade-off because of the movement range that they can aim. So you can really be creative and mess around with them. You can even create like these little staircases if you really want to. Especially cool if you're a speedrunner.
How do you guys? So there's two things that come to my mind immediately when you talk about it, right? So immediately the engineer sounds super powerful. So how did you make sure that first kind of all of the characters seemed viable? Because the way you describe them, like that sounds like sure the others could be, but like just sounds the thing. And the other one is how do you control for stuff like game breaking bugs or physics bugs or whatever? Kind of I could place stuff anywhere for obvious kind of reasons of I can now block a path or I can mess with like pathfinding or any of that kind of interesting stuff that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, so we always took the philosophy of okay, we're not a multiplayer game. We're not a competitive game, right? So if something is slightly more powerful than something else, then we shouldn't worry about that too much. Like our main thing is it fun to play with? Is it fun to combine with the other stuff? And then we, of course, if it's too powerful, at one point we had like this rocket turret which just cleared the entire screen and it was cheap to put down and whatnot. Then we kind of tone it down a little bit so it doesn't become too insane. But in general, we just, we go through all of them and make sure that they're fun. If they're fun on their own, then that's already a big thing. And certain combinations are way more powerful for sure. But in the end, we leave it up to the player just to have fun and to mess around with it. And it's always, it's always cool to see new people come up with new combinations that we didn't really think of. And yes, bug-wise, or like, sometimes they can provide issues, but so far we've been fairly good at testing everything. So, knocks on wood, holds every piece of wood that I can find. I think most of them work pretty well together. Yeah, so it's really cool to kind of see what you can do with those things.
No, that's always. I do like how you're like it all seems to be working.
Yeah. I mean, so because you can go to the extremes and like make like a matrix and you test everything with everything, but part of it is also kind of discovering and seeing what happens. And if it creates like this crazy combo, then hey, cool. Because as a player as well, you're gonna feel like really smart then because you figured it out. Like, oh, this is completely broken. I figured out this thing. But yeah, we throttle. There's throttles in there as well, right? Because we kind of limit how quickly you can reuse certain abilities, and certain abilities use like a little bit of a stamina. So if there's something really broken, chances are, or super over, like extremely powerful, chances are that you won't be able to spam it, right? It's going to be like, oh, I can do it. Okay, do your cool, awesome combo move, and then like, oh shit. Enemies all around me. I need to kind of manage that, run away, deal with that, and then okay, do your cool combo again.
No, yeah, that's fair. Setting them up or cooldowns, whatever. Like you're like, I can do this thing. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of
and especially as well, like there's because you can place them on moving objects and stuff like that as well. So yeah, there's some fun things that you can do.
Nice, but yeah, I just want to clarify. So as we're talking, we said my assumption is this game's kind of out right as this show comes out. So people should go check out Trifox on, as we said, Steam and all major PC platforms. You also will be launching on Switch, right? And
yeah.
Xbox, and at some point PlayStation.
Yes.
So so obviously you said this is a single player kind of. I think of that N64, but it's like a little bit big of an error, right? That is for PlayStation or PlayStation, those actual platforming games. I've got to ask the ultimate question of all the games come out now. Is there any plans or potential plans you think to add some sort of multiplayer-y thing, or do you kind of view this as like this is a single player game and at some point maybe it will be a different game?
In the case of Trifox, at least this Trifox is going to be a single player game. It's like it is a decision that we made at the beginning, being a very small 2-man team when we started out with this. Like, okay, are we going to add multiplayer? And we also use Unity, so we kind of had to make the decision. Okay, how much extra work is this going to be, right? What are the implications and so forth? And we decided, okay, well, we're going to just go all in on the single player part, make sure that we can do as much as possible with that. And don't have to worry about adding multiplayer and all that kind of stuff. Because there's a lot of stuff that comes with multiplayer, right? It's not only just making sure that everything works and everything replicates, and we also have a lot of physics stuff happening, so that then also needs to work. But then also in terms of content-wise, you have to make sure that you design your levels to work with multiplayer, that potential puzzles work with multiplayer, and so forth and so forth. So.
That makes a lot of sense. I just feel because I think that's one of the things that people see now, and that's kind of like, oh, that's always that fun kind of thinking about. But yeah, even you talking about kind of how those physically things work, I'm like, I have a hunch that some of these might just fry us over. But yeah.
I mean, we at one point, so we actually built the game with like multiple players in mind, though. Like the way our systems work, they all kind of take that somewhat in mind. It's just there's just so much. It complicates so much of what you're doing when you go multiplayer that for a team of our size it wasn't viable, and also with the resources that we have, I think it would. I probably wouldn't be lying if it would double like the costs to actually make the game, right? Like because of all the things that can happen and all the things that you need to take into account. Because we have a lot of stuff in the game. Like it's not the biggest game, but I'm pretty happy with the amount of variety that we got in there.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and that is interesting, kind of how like I understand why it was planned, and then it also was thrown away. You're like, yeah, because there's always that like fun stuff of like everyone's like, well, this seems easy, just flick a switch, it's good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but then I have to run like some sort of web server instance, and then this and that. Like it's just a lot of. There's just a lot of logistical nightmares. I think is kind of a nice way to say it.
Yeah.
You throw multiplayer and stuff, but yeah.
And then what if that person is using this ability to make that physics object hurl towards the other side of the level towards an enemy, make sure that was correctly replicated so it's in the correct position for the other player and it doesn't end up 10 meters away from it and all that kind of
it's
stuff.
not just that one object that moved, but all the other objects that touch
everything, right?
Or move, or like you're like, there's so much.
Yeah, and it's like, and then you're pulling that switch and that lever, and what happens if you die, and so many things.
So many problems. But yeah, the game is Trifox. So the game is basically out now, or out in like a day or two from this coming out. Just go look at it on Steam, on Switch, on Xbox, soon to be PlayStation. October 14th for most of those platforms. Said other major PC stores. You are part of Glowfish Interactive. Is there any other spot we should be sending people to go check out the game?
Yeah, you can always join our Discord. Just if you go to any of our socials, I think on Twitter we're at Trifox Game. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, all the places. We also have a website, which is www.trifoxgame.com, and you can find everything from there. And just if you Google us as well, you'll probably find everything as well. So be sure to give it a look and let us know if you like it or not.
Perfect. I want to say thank you again for taking time to talk to me today, and enjoy the rest of your, I guess, afternoon, evening.
Yes, it's late afternoon, so evening. I still have quite some work to do. So I'll try to get everything ready for launch. So exciting times.
We are happy to announce that this episode of the SWW Show is partially brought to you by Humble Bundle. Well, not really. We are part of the Humble Bundle referral program, and we just wanted to say that if you like really cheap games and maybe helping charity pending the Humble thing going on, all you have to do is go to humblebundle.com/?partner equals SWW. That's right, humblebundle.com/?partner equals SWW. And you just do your normal stuff, and it just kind of helps us get a couple bucks here and there. Maybe it helps AJ get his lights, maybe it's Mike camera, maybe we actually pay Corey for helping us out. But again, if you're going to go buy games anyway, it might be worth checking out. The SWW Show and all of its affiliate podcasts are podcast by me, Mike Maroney, and AJ Losi, sometimes by our contributors, including Corey King. You can follow the SWW Show on social media at the SWW Show, or sooner or later you go to patreon.com/SWW to help us out. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.